Podcast, a podcast for sewists by sewists. I'm your host, Bethany.
And I'm your host, Audra. And today we have the incredibly talented Dee Bushrod with us as our guest. You may know her as at Pixel Quilt. She makes incredible quilts, incredible quilted apparel, and we are so excited to sit and chat with her today. Dee, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I feel that was the bigger intro than I deserved.
I actually feel it was a smaller intro than you deserved. We're big Dee fans here at the Sewcial.
Big Dee fans, and you should be too.
I'm big fans of yours, right?
Oh, well,
big fans.
We pay you to say that. So I think we're going to kick off the episode with our icebreaker before we dive into learning more about you. Our icebreaker is something that we do just to kind of get the episode started, and we hope that all of you listeners will join in and answer the icebreaker on the Sewcial Sewist Facebook page as well. Our icebreaker this week is, what's a project you made that totally changed how you saw yourself as a creator?
Wow. Well, straight away for me, it would be my first pixel quilt of a face. It'd be the Billie Eilish quilt that I made in 2021, I think. That was the first time after 20 years, well, at the time it was 16 years of being a quilter, that I actually enjoyed the whole process. And I tried every single different type of quilt up till that stage, and I would always find myself like frustrated because my points weren't pointy enough or my seams weren't straight enough. And then I designed Billie and I made Billie, and the amazing thing about pixel quilts is that you don't have really big seams, so you can't go far wrong when your seam is like that big or that big. And she was the first quilt that I enjoyed from start to finish, and so that's why I've ended up on my, I think I've just finished my 55th pixel quilt. Wow. So yeah,
that's
so
you found your passion and your calling.
I did, and I really wasn't looking for it. I was not looking for it at all. I just stumbled across it, and then this whole new world opened up, and it was like, okay, I like this.
And I think that's what happens too, is we're not looking for it, and it's just brought to you by, as Elizabeth Gilbert would call it, big magic, or the universe is listening, and all of a sudden, if you're paying attention, you find your calling.
Audra, what about you? What's a project that kind of changed how you saw yourself as a creator?
It was a project I did a couple years ago. I had an event coming up and I really wanted to wear something fun, and you'll see it in my socials and I'll post it again. I call it my graffiti dress. A few years ago, I was in Manhattan at Gotham Quilts, which their storefront, their brick and mortar is now no longer in existence, but it was this Alexander Henry fabric that had this great graffiti print on it. And I fell in love with it, and I bought the last of the bolt. There wasn't much left. But I knew I wanted to do something fun with it, and I sat on this fabric, and this event was coming up, and I found this Big Four McCall's pattern. It was just a simple collared summer dress, which is totally my style.
Of course it has a collar.
I know, of course there's a collar. It's like the thing. Here, I actually brought it. For those of you watching, it's right here. The McCall's 6686, this little collared summer dress.
That is cute. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, McCall's 6696. We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
But it was this perfect, simple, classic tailor dress with this super bold, crazy graffiti print. And I knew I wanted to merge the two. And I put a lot of time and effort into it. I made the button thread color a certain color so it would pop. I put all these fun labels in it. I tailored it like as much as I could have possibly tailored it to my abilities. And when it came to life and I put it on and I went, holy crap, I actually did it. I actually took what was in my head and is now on my body. And that was really the moment that I just saw myself differently as a creator. So,
how long ago was that?
Well, funny enough, I just wrote it because I wore it yesterday. And I was in my 1 line a day journal. And it was 2 years ago to the day that I finished it. I wrote in my 1 line a day journal, like, finished graffiti dress. So I actually ended up wearing it like on the 2-year anniversary of making it. So it would have been the summer of 2023.
And you wore it to your daughter's play.
Yeah, which was, I needed something colorful because I'm a very neutral person. and it was Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat. So of course I wore something really colorful.
I would say my project, there's a lot that have like kind of changed how I view myself as a creator because I do so many different types of sewing. But the one that immediately popped in my head that I don't really talk and share about very much was a dress that I made for the educator challenge for the Viking convention a couple years ago. This is back in 2023 in the fall. Our challenge was we had to create our own fabric and then turn that into something. And so I used water soluble stabilizer, lots of it, and cut up a bunch of little pieces of quilting cotton and in different, like it was like shades of pink into white. So I cut up all these random scraps in like small little triangle angle shapes and laid them all on top of this water soluble and sandwiched it and then quilted it with like literally sewing with like pink tinsel thread that like shimmered, like not the most enjoyable thing to sew with, but it added a little sparkle. And then when I washed all of the water soluble away, I was just left with the scraps and the thread that was holding it together. And I did that for the front and the back of this dress. It's normally a knit dress that I turned into a woven dress and then just bind like the armholes and the neck. So it was a completely scrappy and it was like faded from like dark pink to white. And I was so proud of that. I did it in like 13 hours. The day before I had to leave for convention. And it was my submission. I didn't win anything because it's definitely a quilters convention. And they're like, know your audience, I guess. But it's what I wanted to make. And I was really proud of it. And I love it so much. And I think what I loved about it that made me view myself a little differently is I have all this knowledge. And I was able to create something really cool that took all of my techniques and knowledge to make. There was no tutorial. I was making it up as I was going, and I was just hoping that everything I had learned from all my years of sewing would make it work out. And it came to fruition, and getting to have a vision and seeing it come to life, especially in just a day, was really like I can do cool things. I can do big things. I can do hard things. And sometimes you need a challenge to push you to do those things and to appreciate the skills that you have. And so for me, that was one of those. I was like, that was so good. That was so
I feel
good.
like I want to see both of them now. So
I know. I think mine's hanging in this closet right here. I'll post a picture in our Sewcial Sewist Facebook group, and we'll definitely post a picture of Dee's Billie Eilish quilt, her first one, and also Audra's dress, because we want to inspire you, and we'd love to see what was something that you made that made you go, pretty proud of myself for that one, or I really am, learning, like applying the skills that I've learned and challenging myself. And I think that's always a good thing to do.
I think as quilters, or just as women, I feel like we're so hard on ourselves usually. So to actually step back and recognize something that we've done that we're proud of, sometimes it feels, especially for like Gen X, anytime I take a selfie or anything like that, I'm like, this just feels so narcissistic. But I feel like we have to do this, we have to kind of appreciate our work, that sometimes we can look at and go, you know what, I'm proud of that.
I agree. And having put this garment that I was so proud of into this like thing that was voted on and not to win anything, like it was hard at first, because at first I'm like, oh, was it not good? I followed the rules? Like I felt like it was pretty impressive that I knocked that whole thing out. But at the same time, like it doesn't take away from what I did. And I think it's a good reminder for anyone who puts quilts into shows or submits any sort of project they've made, like as long as you're proud of it, and that's all that matters, really. And so I had to remind myself that, because I was like, oh, well, I worked really hard on that, and that was like, I've never seen anybody else do that, and I thought that was really cool. And then that's okay, I love it.
Well, in general, especially when you put yourself out there, whether you're making it just for you or you're even putting something out there to be judged, there's a lot of other people who aren't doing either one of those things.
Yeah.
So the fact that you're actually putting yourself out there, they say no, they don't like it, whatever, but you tried. And that is something that a lot of people who didn't try, they're at home wishing they could be willing to be that vulnerable.
I was going to say, I think also it's hard to expect someone to judge something that they couldn't do themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so what I did, it's not to say that they couldn't, but maybe they hadn't, so they don't appreciate what had gone into it. You know what I mean? They judge what they know.
Yeah.
And if they don't understand it, it's hard to judge that. And I get that. Like I've judged competitions and things before, and it is a lot of pressure. And so yeah, you just have to take it with a grain of salt. But I was really proud of it. And my friends who I worked with that were educators were really impressed with it. And honestly, their opinion matters the most. So to me. So let's kind of dive into Dee, all things Dee, and all that
Dee,
you do.
yeah.
First of all, I love the quilt that you chose to have behind you. If you're not watching over on our YouTube channel, she has got one of her Post Malone quilts hanging behind us. So I love that he's in the background with us today.
He's actually right next to me. One of the ladies that I gave a quilt talk to sent me this in the mail as well. And so this is my Post Malone statue. You can see all his head tattoos. And so he sits next to me while I sew. And when I go to any retreats, he comes with me as well.
I love it. He's well traveled.
He is well traveled.
Yeah.
So for those people who might not be familiar with you yet, would you mind telling us a little bit of the background about your journey, how you got here, and just anything you'd like to share?
Well, I guess, like I said, I'd been a quilter for like 16 years, and I'd always let comparison kind of be the thief of joy for me. And so I never enjoyed the process of quilting. It was a process I had to get through in order to get the final result, which often would be a gift. So I was doing it to gift. But I was always so hard on myself. And so it wasn't a relaxing thing for me. It was something that I just did and I plowed through in order to get the end result. And then we moved back to America. We used to live in America from like 2005 to 2019, and then we moved home for 6 years. And we moved back during the pandemic. And it was a really, really tough time, especially for my daughter, because 2020 was meant to be her final year at school. And so we had all these things planned. She'd been studying so hard for her exams and everything. And of course, 2020 we had lockdown. And we had a very strict lockdown in England for 3 months that we were kind of at home. And she missed everything. She missed all her final exams. She wasn't allowed to see her friends. And even by the time we were in the summer, we were moving back here, everything was still in a partial lockdown. So she really wasn't able to say a final goodbye to her friends. We really weren't able to kind of spend time with family. And the last thing we were supposed to do, literally the night before we were flying back out to live in Tulsa, is we were supposed to go to a Billie Eilish concert in London. And that was her kind of congratulations, you've worked really hard. That was that. And of course, that was all cancelled as well. So coming over here was especially difficult for her, because then of course she had to go into a new school, all new people. There wasn't a lot of closure at home, and she went into a very, very dark place. And during that time, while I was trying to seek help for her, I was trying to inspire her, because she's very creative. And so I remember saying to her, look, why don't we work on a banner that we can take to a Billie Eilish concert, just so that, we can hold it up and maybe just that 1 second she looks in our direction. And she was like, yeah, okay, let's do that. Because it's like, as soon as she releases tickets, we'll get them. Whatever we have to do, we'll get them. And so that's how Billie kind of came about. I took her album cover, and then that got translated into a pixel quilt, and I worked on it. And the reality of that quilt is that it's far too big. It's 80 inches by 80 inches. There's no getting into a concert venue with that thing. But it was amazing for 2 reasons. One, it was the first quilt I was able to ever love every part of the process. And then 2, it was amazing because it meant my sewing room is actually right next to my daughter's bedroom. And so it meant that I was able to kind of keep an eye on her without her realizing that I was keeping an eye on her. so that's how it all came about. And then I remember making this quilt and putting it online and just getting this my friends and family were just kind of went crazy. And I remember saying to my daughter, but I think what's going to happen, this is like the little pessimistic part of me. I was like, but I think what's happened is I have picked the only image in the world that really translates into a pixel quilt. And I don't think I'm going to be able to replicate this. And I said to her, I just need, I need to challenge and see if this is a thing. I need a really complicated face. And then she said, so there were two artists that I would hear from her room all the time. One was Billy and then one was Post Malone. And she said, well, why don't you do Post Malone's face? And so he was my second pixel quilt. And Posty was the one that kind of sealed the deal for me. I was like, okay, this is a thing. I love it. And it works.
And for those who are listening who don't know who Post Malone is or haven't seen, you probably heard his music, but he has got tattoos on his face and they're detailed tattoos. So to be able to capture his face with all of those tattoos is the challenging part. Like, how detailed of a picture can you turn into a pixel quilt, correct?
Yeah. It's definitely kind of...
And that's what's behind you.
Yeah, well, and actually he's probably got twice as many tattoos on his face now than when I started the first pixel quilt. He had a lot less.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was what made him so challenging, and that's what made me realize, okay, there's something in this.
And you enjoyed the process.
Yes. So my background is marketing and design, and so I love the design part of it. So it is from start to finish. I love everything about the process, which is why I've done so many of them, I guess. So
yeah. So from that and doing those first couple of quilts and kind of solidifying, like, this is my niche. This is what I enjoy. This is filling my cup. Like, where has that taken you now? I mean, you've done, as you mentioned earlier, like, what, 55 different pixel quilts, and I know you've done a lot of different famous faces and everything as well. So I guess kind of let us know, like, what that journey has looked like since then to now. Like, some of those big milestones, you're like, that was a really cool one, or that one was really fun, or that one gave me a hard time, but I accomplished it, you know?
Well, after doing Billy and Post Malone and putting them online, I had people starting to contact me and go, hey, would you make a pixel quilt of this person for me? And the thing is, if you're not a quilter, you don't understand what you're asking. You don't understand that you're asking someone to take 100+ hours of their time and probably $500 in supplies and do this for free. And the trouble is, I have a really, really hard time saying no. And so the way I thought, you know what, I need to protect this. I need to put some boundaries around this so that I can really dive into this and see if it's something I want to do, is I blocked out 2022 and I did a project where I did one pixel quilt a month of a woman who had inspired me, and then I would aim to give that quilt to her. And the only stipulation on that was that it couldn't be someone I knew, because I thought there's no winning that argument. There's always going to be someone I leave out. And so 2022, I would do one a month. And so I did Ashley Longshaw, the artist. She's got her pixel quilt. I've done Brene Brown. She's got her pixel quilt. Martha Beck, the author, she's got hers. And June came around, and it was the Queen Elizabeth's Platinum Jubilee, so she would have been on the throne for 70 years, which is the longest reigning British monarch we've ever had. And I was feeling very homesick, because in England, they got an extra day off and everyone was planning street parties, and that totally would have been my thing, getting everyone together if I was back in England. And so I did a pixel quilt of Queen Elizabeth and hand embroidered about 3,000 gold beads onto her crown. And then I went to send the quilt to her, and I thought, well, I'll just go on the Buckingham Palace website and get her address. And on their website, it said in bold at the top of like the contact section, it said, the Queen does not accept unsolicited gifts. And I was like, okay, well, I guess that makes sense. You can't just send a box to the Queen. Yeah. And so I wrote to her instead, and I sent pictures of the quilt, and I just said, congratulations on, 70 years. And that was it. And I just kind of sent it, and we had the Jubilee over here, and I got the bunting out and invited all the neighbourhood in to come have some British, food and things, and had a lovely time. And then I just never expected to hear anything else. And then on the July 4th weekend, I had been invited by a lady from my guild to go to a performance. Her son is a jazz artist, and she had invited me to go that evening, and I was on my own. My whole family were in England, so I was completely on my own, and I thought, I should go. And so on the way to my car, I stopped at the mailbox and got this letter out and saw the Royal Crest on it, and it was just like, oh. I know who this is from.
This gives me goosebumps every time I hear this story.
So I kind of was like, I went back into the house, and because I was completely on my own, I literally had no one to share it with. And so I thought I probably just need to record this. And so I just started recording, and then opened the letter, and then just bawled. Because ultimately the letter, which is on my wall right there, says the Queen would like, Queen thanks you, and please would you send your splendid quilt to Queen Elizabeth. So that made me late for this date that I had with my quilt guild lady. So then I was like, okay, I need to go. But I couldn't put the letter down. So I took the letter with me for some reason. I'm like, why am I going to a jazz club with this? And I knock on her door, and I'm stood there.
Just holding the letter like,
yes, I did put the
tell someone.
And I remember her looking, going, oh, hello, what's that? And I went, it's the letter from the Queen. And then all night, anybody that walked past our table should stop them and go, she's just got a letter from the Queen. And I'd be like,
what else do you do? I mean, I would be like speechless.
Well, we got back to her house, and I said to her, for some reason, I actually had the Queen's quilt in the car. I just left it in the car. That's how much value. And I said, oh, I've got the quilt in the car, and it was about midnight by the time we got back to her house. And she went, oh, have you got the? Oh my gosh, okay, hang on. And she went in and she woke her son up, and she said, you need to come and hold this quilt so I can get a picture with Dee next to it. And her son just comes out like, what? The poor guy. But yeah, the whole thing was absolutely hilarious. And I remember I couldn't call my husband. Him and the kids were traveling the next day, and it would have been like 4 a.m. in the morning there, and so I couldn't call anyone. So all I did was snap a picture of like the royal crest on the letter and put it on Facebook. And I remember waking up the next morning and people are just like, Dee, what does that mean? What does that mean? But
the ultimate vague post.
Yeah, it was like, I'm gonna fish here. What does that mean, Dee? But yeah, I don't think I had any words at that point. And by the morning, the picture from my Facebook was already on like our local television channel. They were already reporting on it without me ever speaking to them or anything. I was just like, I'm on the telly.
You packaged it up. Did you send a little note or anything with it, or?
There's specific instructions that needed to be sent via Royal Mail. So I needed to get it to my mum so that she could mail it from England. So it would be Royal Mail. So I packaged it up. It actually went up in a quilt shop in Tulsa for a couple of weeks, and people came to see it. And then when it got to my mum, it went up in a craft shop in my hometown for a couple of weeks. And then my mum packaged it up, and at one point it was quite funny because, I kind of called my mum and I was like, you're going to have to send this. And she's like, oh, well, I've been talking to Jess. So Jess is my best friend from home of like 36 years. And she's like, we're just going to take it. We're just going to go hand deliver it. And I'm like, they're like out buying hats, And I'm like, Mum, you can't just show up at Buckingham Palace with a box. They'll blow it up. Like, literally, they specify you have to send it in the mail. You can't just show up. You're not doing that. And she's like, oh, okay. So, yeah, she mailed.
Just wanted an excuse to go.
Right? And just show up. Like, knock on the door, like, can I speak to the Queen, please?
Can I speak to the Queen?
She invited invited us over for tea so I can deliver this. Like we had an appointment.
And I'd love to say like there's a fairy tale ending, and I'm sure there is, I just don't know about it yet, but we got it signed for because we needed to know it had gotten there, and actually it arrived the morning after she died. Yeah,
that's unfortunate. So they have it.
They do. Have no idea what's happened. It's such a, I mean, this is the first time in 70 years, you know, a monarch has died, and so the machine that has to kick in around that. Actually, the morning I was in California the day the quilt arrived, and I put the TV on as my husband was getting ready. I put the TV on in the morning, and I saw that the news was reporting that the Queen was ill. And I looked at my husband and I said, "That's not right. They don't release things about the Queen's health. There's something wrong." And he was like, "Oh no, you're just reading too much into it, you know." And I was just like, no, that's not right. I have never known the news to ever report anything on the Queen's health. And so I text someone who's on the inside that I know, and I said, "She's died, hasn't she?" And he just texted me back, "Dark days ahead." And so that was about, honestly, that was about 5 hours before the news came out. And in that 5 hours, obviously there was talk like the Queen's really sick. Cars started arriving, you know, of the royal family to Balmoral where she was. And at that point I was like the crazy Brit who made a quilt for the Queen. And so all our local TV stations were contacting me saying, you know, would you do an interview? And so I had to do about 4 interviews that morning, and knowing that she
already knowing,
died, but it hadn't come out, and just kind of like holding back the tears and then getting emotional and going, "Oh, that's so weird. I don't know why I'm so emotional," you know. And it was just like, and then the news did come out, and it was, yeah, it was sad. It was sad.
Yeah. But you did go on and make a replica to keep for yourself. So
yes, and she's the one that kind of comes around to all the Quilt Guild talks with me, and I hate to say it, my replica version is actually better than the original because my replica has got corgis on the back. I found amazing corgi fabric, and then because I had no time limit with mine, I just kept sewing on beads. So I think the Queen's has got 2,500, 3,000 beads. Mine's got over like 4,000.
Wow.
So she's kind of heavy as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's a memorable one for sure. Is there any other ones that you're like, I could never part with this one, you know, now that you've gone through that year of doing of others, and sending them off to them, like, is there any others that you've done since then that you're like, I have to keep this one has sentimental value besides that one, obviously?
This Post Malone, because this is number 6 of 7 Post Malone quilts I've done. He's one of my favorites, just because of the amount of detail that's in him. Like every Pixel quilt ultimately can have up to 6,912 pieces, like pixels, and he has got way over 4,000 in him. So the amount of time he took me, and then just I love how he looks in this. So he's definitely one that I wouldn't ever sell.
Now, for those who are listening who may not understand what a pixel quilt is, or can you maybe explain like what makes pixel quilts different than like traditional quilts, and kind of define that a little bit for those listening who might have never even heard of pixel quilts before?
So pixel quilts is just a way that you can translate an image and make it in quilt form. So I mainly focus on faces, and that's kind of what I enjoy doing, and really focusing in on getting a really good like image of the person that you're representing. But with pixel quilts, you can translate any image into pixels, which will then translate into a quilt. So it could be a flower, or it could be your pet, or but yeah, that's the process of like you take an image, you convert it into pixels, and then you make the quilt based on that.
And it's lots of little pieces.
Yes. Or there's 2 different ways to make a pixel quilt. One is you cut every pixel, and you can use this interfacing that you just press the pixels onto, and then you're just able to kind of sew in rows, which a lot of people like. Or the system I've developed is that it will group like colors together. So there's a lot less cutting and a lot less sewing, which means that you can put them together faster.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Your system.
Okay.
Now that you've gone through and made all of these quilts and figured out a process that works really well for you and a method that you enjoy, and you're ready to make this accessible for others instead of them wanting you to make the quilts, now you're giving them access to make it themselves. So explain this that you've developed.
So I have tested anything on the market that can remotely turn a photo into a pixel quilt. So there's software on the market, there's apps that can do it, there's websites that can do it. EQ8 has a function, a pixel function, and I really wanted a way that would get the most detail out of what the images that I was putting in. And really the only way I could do that effectively was to find some people that could put together a piece of software that does it. So 3 years ago, I found a team, and I've been working with them for over 3 years now to develop a system where you can go onto my website and put an image into my website, and it will translate it into a pixel quilt for you, and it will break it down into the fabric shades you need to buy. It will break it down into exactly how much of each shade you need to buy, exactly how to cut it, and then exactly how to piece it. And there's 4 different fabric lines in there. So it will default to Kona, but if you're not a Kona fan, because I know some people don't like using Kona, there's now Riley Blake, there's Moda Bella, and there's also Michael Miller's Cotton Couture. And then there's different filters. So sometimes you'll put a picture in, like I've got like pinky reddy undertones in my skin. So anytime I put a picture in of me, those undertones come out, which I don't like. So there's different filters you can play with, so you can kind of do it in black and white, which sometimes can help balance an image. Or there's a warm filter that strips out all of the weird undertones like reds or greens or greys or anything. And then there's a couple of pop-art filters in there to play with. And you get to play with it and do the changes that you want before you ever have to kind of commit to buying the pattern. And the patterns are half price at the moment because it's kind of in its final phase of testing, and so the patterns are $15 at the moment.
So when you submit a photo into your system and you go through and decide, like, this is what I want it to look like, it spits out a pattern with fabric color recommendations, how much you need. And does it include like a process of like how to sew it up, or do you have a tutorial that they can access to learn? Like, it's like their very first pixel quilt, asking for a friend. So if I wanted to do that, like what would I be getting from that to be able to set myself up to be able to make it?
So like the first page will tell you, okay, you've chosen Kona cottons, these are all the shades you need to buy, and this is how much of each shade you need to buy. Before you ever buy fabric, you need to ascertain, am I gonna sew it with the grid? So I'm pressing on and I'm sewing in strips, so I will cut every pixel, which is 6,912 pieces of fabric, or am I gonna sew it so that it's grouped and I'll have less to cut? And after you've decided that, which is when I teach, that's the 2 methods I teach on, so that people will walk away from the class knowing, okay, I prefer this method. And then from there you can look at the pattern, because if you like the method that you want to cut every pixel, which you can use an AccuQuilt die and the stripology ruler, you need more fabric. And in some regards, you need a lot more fabric. And so the yardage requirements for cutting every pixel are a lot more than if you do the group cutting. So you kind of need to know that which way you want to do it before you tackle it. And then the pattern tells you both. And you have to just either go and buy from group cutting or go and buy from every pixel. And then it basically breaks, every quilt is broken down into 8 pixel by 8 pixel blocks that just go together in a row. And so
it's kind of doing block by block. You're doing small. Yeah. So when you break it down into smaller segments, it's easier, more manageable, maybe less daunting.
Yeah, a lot more manageable. They look like they're complex, but I always say actually pixel quilts are easier than traditional quilts, because Like there's no bias seams, there's no tiny triangles, and everything in the pattern is telling you what colors you need to pick for that block. And so yeah, I love the process. I find it's something that a quilter will either love, like me, while they're doing one, they've already designing the next one in their head, or they will detest the process and they will get through that and then they will never do another one. There doesn't seem to be a middle ground.
So, for your program, do you have a date of full releasing this beautiful baby you've been working on for 3 years on the calendar?
Yes, in theory. Like I realize now that creating software is a lot like doing something to your house. Like you originally have a date and you originally have a cost, and then you start it and you don't know what you don't know, and all of that goes out the window. We were originally supposed to do this in 90 days and we're three years on now. And partially that's my fault because I keep saying, oh well, hang on, let's just add this feature, or let's just add another fabric line, you know, and so it's me, I'm the problem. But I'm hoping the final launch will be September. But there is a link on my website, so if you want to know when it's out finally, you can sign up, and I will give you the heads up when it's out for good.
So what they can do now on your website versus what's coming out, can I tell us the differences of what that experience will be for them?
So at the moment, the website is based on what we launched. We did a soft launch on this final testing phase last August. And then basically everybody, I've been wanting people to feedback. What do you need? What do I need to change? Tell me what about the process annoys you. And so this whole year has been about, okay, well, we need to tweak this. We need to sort this out. We need to add this feature. The one thing that has come about that I just never even thought, stupidly, I never even thought, people try and design pixel quilts on their phone. And I've never done that. I've always done it on my laptop with a big screen, because I feel like you need to get the most out of it, you need to be able to look at a large screen and really see what you're doing. So a lot of the past year has been trying to kind of sort the website out so that if people do design on a phone, it's seamless. But I would not
Their photos are on their phone, right? Like, so I kind of get it, but I'm like you. It's like if I'm designing something, I want a bigger screen. I want to do it from my computer, not a tablet or a mobile device. But there's some people that may not have that. So like, how do they create it? So you're working through that.
Yeah, so it's optimized for tablets, it's optimized for Macs. But the crazy thing is when you start bringing phones into it, I have to optimize it for a phone that's kind of 10 years old, that throws up all manner of issues that you didn't even anticipate. So this whole year has just been a process of like, okay, it doesn't work. And then I'll have to go back and ask the person, okay, how are you accessing it? Okay, well, what phone do you have? What operating system are you using? You know, so that's been my life for a year now. And I'm pretty fed up with it, honestly. Well, and the developers kept saying to me, you just need to put heading on your website saying, do not use your phone. I'm like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to do that. We need to do the work to get it to work on people's phones. So
all this work that you've put into developing this incredible software, we know you're fed up with that part of it, but do you still enjoy creating pixel quilts themselves as much as you did in the beginning? And if so, is there a genre of pixel quilt that just really lights your fire, whether it's another Posty or another Billy, or is it something other than that?
Yeah, I love the process. This whole year that's been so technology focused has kind of stolen some of the joy, because actually when I'm left alone and I'm allowed to design a pixel quilt and focus on somebody, you know, that I admire, I love everything about it still. And I love the process of getting up here and sewing it as well. And I think faces will always inspire me. I think that I've done animals. I was just designing a dog, a Labrador this morning for a lady that, you know, needed some help. And that's amazing. And I will always be touched with the mums and the grandmas that do their son or daughter in their military uniform, having just gone through boot camp. You know, that stuff always touches my heart. But for me personally, I'm a fan of like the faces.
I love that you do that. And I think all this hard work that you've put in over the last 3 years, but even just this last year, when it does launch and people are able to fully like take on Pixel Quilts with and have success and start sharing what they've made because of the resource that you've spent so much time building for them, I think you're going to find that, yeah, you get joy from making them, but the joy you're going to get from seeing all of these, it's just going to overflow. I'm so excited for you.
Well, and they're like, anytime someone like your mum or Jess sends me a picture of like the quilt that she's made, there's a pride in me that's almost like they're my it's my children's work, you know, and I'm just like, I love that. That is what touches my heart above everything else, is when people do their pixel quilts and then they come back and they're like, I did this, and I'm just like, you're amazing.
I love that. Now people can learn to make pixel quilts with you. You mentioned that you do a lot of teaching and you kind of travel all over. Can you tell us a little bit about that if they wanted to maybe get some one-on-one small group D lessons directly from you?
Well, quilt guilds can book me, and I do like my guild talk, or and I do workshops and things, or quilt shops, or whoever really. I'm just needing to work on an online teaching tool that's just there if people want just to look online. But yeah, mainly I just travel everywhere. I'll be at QuiltCon next year teaching. I'm actually teaching on quilt dresses. But of course I will be available if anyone wants to talk about pixel quilts. So yeah, I've got some amazing guild workshops coming up, and I'm always up for traveling and teaching.
And then you have a couple of little retreats. Like you have, okay, so you have a day retreat that you're doing the day that this podcast is airing at Osage Hills.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about that, because it's like a kind of dual day with Dee doing a couple things.
Yeah, so it's combining my two passions. It's called Sourdough and Stitches. So I actually have an in-home micro bakery here in Oklahoma. We have some amazing cottage bakery laws, which means that I can make sourdough bread at home and sell it to my community. And so the sourdough making has actually enabled me to pay for the website. So it's kind of one passion funding another, because software developers do not come cheap. And so the sourdough, my micro bakery, basically helps me to pay for the website. And it's something I love to do. And so once a week I put up a menu, and then people can pre-order, and then they come and choose what time they want to pick up. And it's just from my porch, and I'll put it out there and make sure their bread's ready. And so I've combined both of those, and I'm doing a sourdough and stitches workshop at Melissa's Osage Hills. And we put one workshop out, which is just a day workshop, and where people will learn about sourdough. We'll learn sourdough throughout the day, because obviously it's a long process to make a loaf. And then in between, we're going to be sewing a little pixel quilt project. And that sold out so quickly that she said, we need to do something else. And I was like, okay, we'll offer it again. And then that sold out as well. So she's been like asking me for a while to book a retreat, and I've just been so scared. Like, I know it doesn't look like it, but I am an introvert, and the thought of being 24/7 on terrifies me. But because I love her, I booked it. And so I'm actually doing my first pixel quilt retreat at hers in November as well.
That's going to be a great time. It's the Nutcracker, right?
Yes, because I am a huge Nutcracker fan. I have a 6-foot Nutcracker called Frank that he used to just come out for Christmas, and then I was just so sad every New Year that I had to put him away, that he's just out year round in my living room now. So we're working on a pixel quilt Nutcracker project, and then we're doing this amazing canvas Nutcracker mat, and then a really, really lovely Nutcracker door wreath as well. So I'm super excited about that.
It's going to be so fun. And it's sold out as well.
It did, yeah. I was just
Yeah.
like, oh, this is going to be embarrassing. I'm going to put this out and no one's going to sign up.
Okay, I feel the same way every time I put out a retreat, and it's
Yours
just
literally sold out in 3 minutes, though. I mean, mine was like 3 days. Yours was like 3 minutes.
not my first one though. Not my first one. This was my second one. So like, yeah, it takes some time. And it is very scary to put yourself out like that because you've committed to this time and you have to pay for it. And so, but I knew yours would sell out. I mean,
There's
without a
something
doubt.
very vulnerable about putting yourself out there in that way, though, isn't there?
It's so different than just doing like a 1 or 3 hour class versus like a 3 day, 4 day retreat. Because like you said, you are with this same group of people and you're like hoping everybody gets along and like all these other things. You have to prepare for everything. But honestly, like Melissa makes it very easy at Osage Hills. That's where I have had my 2 retreats. My next one being in October. And that's where you came to my first one and spent a day like hanging out and doing one of the projects with us, which was so fun, and brought some of your quilts so people could see them in person, which was really sweet, and everybody loved that. And also can attest to how delicious your sourdough bread is because you gifted us some to have for the for the retreat, and it was so good. So I'll definitely have to get more for the October retreat from you. But it's fun. It's a lot of fun, but it's a lot of work. And I knew that yours would be great. And if I lived closer, I would have come back in November for it. But maybe we'll get you to travel around and do some more of those once you get your feet wet with it. But you're in really good hands with Melissa, and I know you guys are good friends. So I know it's
Yeah.
a huge success.
We have a segment called Thread Talk, but in our last guest episode with Sewtopia, it kind of turned into a hot take. So you can choose however you'd like to approach it. It could be a hot take, which is maybe a slightly controversial topic, or it could be Thread Talk, which is something that you're seeing in the industry that you would like to discuss, or something that you have a general thought about or guidance you would like to share.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, two things. If you want to go a bit risque, and it's something I'm struggling personally with at the moment, it's pattern piracy. And the question whether actually just working with quilt shops and just sending out paper versions of pattern, which is expensive. My patterns are usually about 23 pages.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to a professional printers and have that printed, that will cost you $15. And I know for me, I'd rather have the pattern instantly in PDF and download it and then just print it myself. But it becomes so easy to share when you send them a PDF that I'm just like, I don't know what the answer is, honestly. I've seen companies like Legit Kits who their patterns are hundreds of pages, because of all the FPP pieces you need to print out and everything. They were having this issue, I know, and they scaled everything back, and they will only sell paper copies now to both quilt stores and, to the public. But it's a really tricky subject. My guild is amazing. Anytime I go away or do anything with my guild, if someone is like, hey, why don't we all do this pattern? And I'm like, oh yeah, great idea. And there will always be like the odd person that will be like, oh, well, can I just copy yours? And they're really good about, no, absolutely not. You buy your own, because they know how much I've been ripped off before. Mm-hmm. But I don't know the answer to that. That's something that I don't even know whether there is an answer, honestly. But every time you share a pattern that you've bought, it's not fair.
It's not. I've had it happen to me. When I designed my first garment pattern even. And not only was it stolen by a very large fabric company and put on their blog for free, they named it the exact same thing. It couldn't have been more obvious. And it like killed me. And I reached out to them and I'm like, look, it's not like a rocket science like garment. But like, can you at least not call it the same thing? Because if anybody searches for my pattern under that name, with your reach on the internet, yours is going to come up first and they're going to get it for free. Yes, they were at least apologetic and kind enough to change the name, but it had already been out there. But what I loved, and to your point with your guild members, is so many people, as soon as they saw it and got that email from that company, they like sent me screenshots and I'm like, can you believe this? They copied you and it's the exact same name, it's the exact same skirt. And I was like, I have an army that supports me and I can't like let this one thing win. Showed me how many people really do support me, and they're like, I would never, I would totally get yours and support you. I saw all the hard work you put into it. And so I think it kind of reminded me like my community does stand behind me, but at the end of the day, at least they were willing to change the name and take the blog down and redo it. But it's tough as an artist, as a creator, as a designer. I've felt it. I know you felt it. Even just like sharing patterns and things like that, like it's hard. We've seen it with like these big companies, right? Like Temu and things like that, where they're straight up taking images of people's patterns and using it and selling finished garments with their images. That is stolen property as well. So it's just a challenge that I think any industry in the art field, whether it's sewing or other types of art, it happens, unfortunately. And I don't know, to your point, if there will ever be a solution to prevent and protect the creative work. And in saying that, I hope it doesn't discourage someone from being creative.
Or, I mean, along that same vein, when are these big companies going to start actually financially paying these designers and not expecting this stuff for free for exposure? You know, that's another thing, that when you're new into the industry, of course you do all this stuff for free because you're trying to get your name out there. But sometimes I think everybody will get to a point where it's like, hang on a minute, is this actually worth it? Is it actually worth all the time and resources that I put into this for just my name to be out there? And I think that's another big hot topic that sometimes we don't talk enough about.
Yeah. What was your other hot topic you wanted to bring up?
I was not a retreat girl. So my guild has a retreat that I think there's like 45 people that get together. And every year, these ladies would say to me, Dee, come to the retreat. And I was like, nah. In my head, I'm going, look, all my stuff is upstairs. Why am I going to pack up all my stuff to travel an hour away to sleep in a room with 2 other people? Like, why am I going to do that? And then they made me do it, and I did it. And now I'm like, anytime I can get to go to a retreat, I totally jump at the chance because I adore them. Like, I didn't get it, and now I'm a bit of a retreat hoe. Like, I'm there. You don't even have to invite me. I'm there.
What would you say is like the most surprising thing that you got out of that first retreat that you were least expecting? That like made you go, I want to keep doing these now. It changed your perspective on them.
Like, number one thing is that I can sit and sew, and then I hear a bell and I'm like, oh, it's lunchtime. And I get up and I eat, and then I come in and I sew, and then there's a bell and I'm like, oh, it's dinner time. So I'm not the person at a retreat that's like going around to all the different tables and chatting. Like, I'm sewing. I'm sewing. In fact, one lady came up to me 2 days into the retreat. She's like, Dee, have you even gone over the other side of the room and said hello? And I'm like, I'm sewing, I did get home after that retreat, and I sat down with my husband and I said, I think I might be a little more on the spectrum than I thought I was, because they were all like mingling and talking, and I'm like, I'm sewing.
Hyper focused.
Totally. Had my projects, knew what I wanted to do, and yeah.
It's the dedicated sewing time, however you want to use it, right? But like knowing like you said, there's a time for meals, but like you're not cooking meals, you're not preparing meals, you're not doing any laundry, you're not cleaning up. Like it's all like, I have dedicated sewing time however you want to use that time. And it's really like the last one that I went to was on a whim. I booked it like 2 days before it started. And I didn't know anybody there. I just wanted to go explore this retreat center locally and see what it was all about. And I made like 2 huge quilt tops and another project completely finished in the few days that we were there. And again, it's just like dedicated sewing time. I got to socialize when I wanted to, but I was like in the zone and sewing super fast and like having the best time. And I didn't realize how much I needed that break for myself.
Well, Audrey just said you were at a retreat last weekend with your mum, Teresa's retreat. That place, is it the Arts Nest?
Yeah, the Art Nest Retreat Center in Agency, Missouri.
I've never been there, but I was chatting to the lady that owns it, and I'd love to kind of get to go. But was that fun?
It was beautiful, and that was our both of our first retreats ever. And similar to you, I am not the chatter. I am the sewer. Mom and I both were just in it to win it and want to sew and get work done and feel accomplished. But the camaraderie is incredible. I can definitely see the appeal. We definitely want to do another one. It was a wonderful time, and Teresa and Hawk were incredible. We called it Sewing Summer Camp. It was totally like summer camp.
Now I know that I will book with them because yeah, they're only like 4.5 hours away from me.
Our last thing that we want to wrap up our episode with is your love to see it. We each will share a little something positive that's going on that we want to just mention and kind of wrap up on a positive note, even though this whole episode has been lovely. So Audra, I'll start with you. What is your you love to see it?
Well, this kind of segues into the sewing retreat. When my mom and I were at the retreat, my mom was sitting across from me, and I hear this, and I'm like, oh my God, because you immediately think like someone cut off a finger or a needle went through a finger or like something bad happened. And I'm like, Mom, what? And she goes, Elvis got into Houston. So now nobody in the room knows what that means except my mom and I. So a little backstory. My mom and I were at QuiltCon in Raleigh, and my mom saw Dee from across the room, and I hadn't known Dee yet at the time. And my mom's elbowing me, or she goes, Audra, that's Pixel Quilt. That's Dee. And I'm like, what? She goes, oh my God, I have to meet her. I'm like, well, go introduce yourself. And my mom's like, no, I can't. And I'm like, fine, I'll be wing lady. I have no issue being wing lady. So I walk up to Dee at the bar, and I'm like, hi, my name's Audra. You don't know me, but my mom is over there, and she's a massive fan and wants to meet you. So can I like introduce you to my mom? So Dee and my mom sit down and end up talking for, I don't even know, it felt like the whole rest of the evening. And my mom ends up being one of the testers. Well, then Dee's like, would you like to test my software? And my mom's like floating back to the hotel because she's so excited because she gets to test Dee's software. On Cloud9. And so my mom made a quilt using Dee's software. It is called Blue Hawaii. It is a black and white quilt with a blue lay. It is Elvis, and that's why it's called Blue Hawaii. And Blue Hawaii, my mom pieced it, and she asked me to quilt it, so I quilted it for her on my Grace long arm. And she entered Blue Hawaii into Houston Quilt Festival, and he was accepted. And so that is my love to see it, and that how everything works out. How I met Dee, my mom met Dee, Dee filled my mom's creative tank, and now it gets to be on display for everyone to see. So if you're at the Houston Quilt Festival, look for Blue Hawaii. My mom put a lot of love and effort into it, and if it wasn't for Dee, that wouldn't have happened.
Oh, I love that.
Well, maybe we shouldn't have started with Audra's you love to see it, because it's kind of hard to like.
We're not topping that. Neither of us.
Dee, what is your you love to see it?
Okay, so this last week, I got to go meet up with some girlfriends from my quilt guild, and we were all meeting in a car park, and then we were carpooling to this place to go pick fresh flowers. And so me and two other friends were in the car park. While we were waiting, we just started chatting. And within 3 minutes, this talk got so deep. And I just remember stopping them and going, ladies, do you know what? This is what I love about female friendships. That literally within 3 minutes, we are at such a depth of our conversation and talking about real stuff. And I will say that sometimes I feel kind of sad for my husband that he doesn't seem to have, like, the boyfriendships. If they were there for 3 months, they probably wouldn't have gone that deep. It probably still would have been talking about cars and things. And so, but I remember saying to them, this is what I love about you guys. You know, the fact that we're completely safe with each other. And this is how deep we got in 3 minutes, you know?
Mm-hmm. I know, it is special. And I feel like I've found a lot of those deeper connections at retreats because I've had more quality time than just a social media chat. And most of my friends, and this may be sad to say, but I would say this is pretty normal these days, is most of my friends, especially sewing friends, are long distance friendships. Like Audra and I and Dee and I, like, we're not in the same state, we're not in the same city, we're hours and hours apart, but we stay connected. And then when we are together, it's just, even more special. So my you love to see it is the fact that my next retreat is at Osage Hills retreat in Tulsa again in October, so in just a couple of months. And I'm hoping I'll get to bump into Dee while I'm there, at least for a few minutes, because I just love it every time I get to see you. So yeah, so that's my love to see it, is knowing that that's coming up, always having an opportunity to like look forward to the next time I get to see my long distance sewing friends. That is why you love to see it, because I, like you said, friendships are so special, and when you have things in common, it's like that opening to learn more about each other, and then you just discover that you have even more in common, and just it's just really sweet and special. I've had some lovely deep conversations with Dee after H&H one night. That was really fun, and just getting to build those friendships in person means a lot. So that's why you love to see it. Audra, what do we have coming up next week?
Next week, we're talking about why we sew, which is, this is a beautiful setup for that whole conversation.
It really is.
So.
I think Dee definitely shared a beautiful story about why she sews, why she fell in love with Pixel Quilts, and why it's become her passion. So if you would like to learn more about Dee, we will have links to her socials and her website in our show notes. So please go check those out. Give her a follow. Cheer her on for this final stretch to get this software up and going. We're so excited and proud of you for all your hard work, and we're grateful for it. I'm looking forward to doing my first Pixel Quilt. You've definitely lit a fire under me to do that. So thank you for that. And we will see you guys soon. Please be sure to go join our Sewcial Sewist Facebook group, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and like us on social media. And we'll see you next week.
Happy sewing.
Thank you, Dee.